Good morning, Jensen. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. And yourself?
Fine, thank you. I was thinking that I was in the wrong place. I already left and came back. I said,
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
the only one on so far.
no, yes, you are.
Oh, wow. Mhm.
Yeah, I guess this
Wow.
this cold weather, have everybody still wrapped up.
That's exactly what it is.
Wow. Okay. Well, hopefully they join, and if they don't, I guess it's being recorded. You know,
Right.
Mm.
Yes.
But I really hope for some participation today, since it's the overview of the paper. I thought persons would have been, yeah,
Especially to this one, right?
yes, right. But nevertheless, we'll see how it goes.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
did you have the opportunity to go through the questions and
Yes. Now, I will admit I have not started formulating my responses, but yes, I did. I did.
oh,
I didn't catch the whole of last class. I had to leave early, but I did get to go over the questions, and I kind of have like an idea of where I'm going to go with it. But with this past week has been crazy in terms of work and working late, and so I didn't really get to start putting it together as yet. So I
okay,
was like,
okay, but you could participate and give some feedback in terms of, you know,
yes.
yeah, okay, good.
Yep.
I hope it's not only you, Jensen.
I hope not. I'm hoping uh, their
Okay.
time, yeah, maybe their times got mixed up.
Yeah.
Maybe time changed and we just don't know.
And we don't know, yeah. I did tell my son the other day. I said, "Oh my God, it's 7 p.m. and you can still see daylight." So I was saying,
Right.
daylight is coming. I don't know when, probably sometime in March, but you can already see that it used to get dark
Yes.
at 5:30.
Yep. In the
Oh,
morning and the evening, you could tell the
yeah,
difference though.
right, right. Okay, good, Jensen. Some other persons that y'all was scaring me, Simone and Angela and Headburn Annie. How y'all doing today?
Cold, but
Good,
I like
Yeah,
it.
thanks.
this cold gets surely.
Yeah,
See
man.
that? I knew that's what it was.
Get your
Good,
blankies,
thanks. Yeah,
get your jackets and be warm.
For sure.
Well, the people in Freeport saying it's like 58 degrees, and so I don't think it's that bad here. Yeah, I think we still in the 70s. Anybody saw the temperature for the morning?
I think the highest today is supposed to be like 60 something, and tonight going down to 50
Okay, but
or 50 something.
definitely, I guess definitely it's Netflix and popcorn tonight. Nobody could be out.
For sure. Or you got to put your boots on, something.
Yeah.
well, I'm in Bimini and it's very cold and it's very, very, very windy. It's freezing. Everybody have on hoodies, toms, jackets. Everything is cold over here.
Okay, okay. Yeah, this is the time to dress up now. All those winter clothes that we never ever get to wear. This is the time, but I don't think I want to be out in 50 degrees. So hopefully by 5 I should get back out and be back in by 7 before it really gets cold. Hopefully. And y'all be careful too, because y'all know that the corona is still out there. So please take your vitamins. We ain't really used to this type of weather. So make sure to take your cod liver oil and whatever vitamins you take, to keep your immune system going. Because to me, something comes with all this breeze, some type of something that you know gives you the sniffles. Well, I have allergies, so that's probably what it is for me. But anyway, nevertheless, we can start. It's already 9:35, so hopefully we should be able to have a discussion with the persons that are here. I hope that most of you come prepared and are ready to discuss. You would have had the opportunity to look at the question. So far, I'm hoping that the lecture was understandable and it was clear, and we know how to connect the dots in terms of ethics and values and corporate governance. And so today, I hope everybody can participate or just, give some input in terms of what the questions are asking and how we should answer them. Are we prepared? Are we prepared to participate? Angela? Have you had the opportunity to go through the questions?
No, I haven't had the opportunity to go through the questions.
Okay, but everything has been clear so far, and you're,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
definitely.
Okay, great. What about you, Simone?
Yeah, I've had a chance to go through them. I guess I'd still need a little guidance. I mean, that's the whole point of this class, this session in particular, in terms of how to go about approaching them. Because like each of the questions for me, I always try to answer from my personal regulator, because that's the one that I am more comfortable with, even though there may be more information like on the central bank. So yeah, with this one, I'm hoping that I could still do the same thing, just because I know that there isn't necessarily that much information out there pertaining to us, compared to like the central bank.
Central bank. Yep.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, Simone, even though you have limited information, the central bank policies, like we are going to discuss the fifth and proper policy. Their policy was last updated in 2003. My God, it's 2022, and so because your commission is fairly new, your policies and procedures are more current. Also with the insurance commission. So even though, because primarily I've been in banking, I always leverage off the central bank. I've noticed now that the insurance and the compliance commission have more current, and the current information that you need. Not saying that the central bank is still not good, they have good foundation, but if you want to see, if you want the extra meat and, the risk-based approach information, then I always still use your commission as well as the insurance commission.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So let's start with question 1, and let's see how we can get through it and see if we can think about, decipher what they're asking and how to answer it. Now, of course, you've already successfully passed through AML, and this would be your, what, 6th paper? Which paper? No, 5th paper. So you've gotten feedback from London. You see the type of comments they make. So you should be fairly familiar and fairly comfortable sitting in the program now and know exactly what the examiners want and where you get points and where you get points taken off, right? So we are all comfortable in terms of what is actually required, correct? Come, y'all talk back to me now. Y'all turn on these mics. I sure y'all even want to turn on these cameras.
That's correct.
Right? Okay, good. Okay, so we
Correct.
Right, good. We're comfortable in the program. Okay, but just for starters, and this is just my personal preference, and I normally, teach the intro and the intermediate class, and we don't, at one point we did have a paper requirement, but we removed that. Okay, but what I always say is, you want to look at, you see that there are 4 questions. And what I've seen just going through this paper and trying to, tear the pieces apart and see what is needed, is the 3,500 word limit. And of course, if you go over, they're saying that there are penalties, so you don't want to go over. So the first thing you want to do is decipher how many words per question you should have. And each question is worth 25 points. So I've divided 25 first by 4. But again, what I would look for in any essay of this magnitude, I would look for a thesis and I would look for an introduction. And again, the introduction just gives the person reading the paper an idea of what the paper is going to be about. So there are 4 questions, and in that introduction, you will say, of course, you will talk about corporate governance, you'll talk about ethics and integrity, and just a small overview. So because there are 4 questions and the introduction, I've divided the 3,500 into 2 5. And so I'm getting around 700 to 650 words per question. I'm getting some feedback. Is that somebody speaking or? No? Okay. Let me just mute some mics. Let me see if I can. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So since that's just a very small number of words to answer these questions, when I went through, what could possibly be answers and what was needed, it was a whole lot of information. And so it's going to be a little tough to stay within the word count. You're going to have to really just scale it down and ensure that you put the pertinent parts in there. Simone, have you noticed that when you were looking at the questions? Do you normally do a calculation to see how many words per question?
Yes, all the time, because I am a very wordy person. That's something
Right.
that I always had a challenge with. So yeah, when sometimes I guess people may be looking to make up, I'm always over the limit. So that's something that I have to do for each paper.
Right, right. Yeah. So these limits are very, very low. And so I guess when you format your paper, I normally write my introductions at the end and even my thesis statement at the end. Of course, it's going to include governance, ethics, and values, but I write it at the end, and that will just give you, the correct information to put in your introduction, because that introduction should really tell the writer what this paper is about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like I said, a lot of persons think, oh, these are 4 separate questions, so I don't need an introduction. I would give somebody more points if it was formatted properly with a thesis as well as an introduction. I'm just saying, if I was the, examiner for these papers. Okay. So you start with your word count and doing the calculation and make sure you don't go over. Okay. Another thing, a lot of the questions, they either ask you to consider or to explain. But like I say, by now, y'all should know, or discuss. But I'm certain, do we need to cover what consider means, what they're asking you, or what discuss means, or are we quite familiar?
Yeah.
The baby said yes. Are we on board? Do I need to go through that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. Okay.
Same.
So
Yes,
I don't
yes,
think so.
yes.
okay.
Consider. When they say consider.
Okay. So consider, they want you to describe or give a view on the subject. When they say discuss, they want, an in-depth answer. They want you to debate all aspects because there may be conflicting views. They want you to research the topic and, or anybody who has a conflicting view. And then they want you to demonstrate, your reasoning, why you are for it or against it, or whose idea do you support. Okay, so you want to look for various perspectives from other scholars or from speeches or from writings from the OECD versus the FATF, and then discuss, which view you support. When they say explain, they want you just to clarify a topic. You want to provide as much detail as possible. You want to give definitions. You want to say if there are any conflict against the definition. Okay. Normally with explain, I think there are 5 or 6. It's the who, what, why, when, and how. You would take that route. And I normally say that's the easiest way to answer any question that says explain. You say who said it, why they said it, when they said it, who it affects or how it affects. And is that who, what, when, why? Yeah, but you get my guess. And that's the easiest way to set up, you know, if it's a topic that's not clear, that's the easiest way to answer it for me. Okay, we all
Thank you.
have, that's clear, and we on the same page?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, so the first question states the values and ethics, the values of ethics and integrity are essential elements of any compliance framework, and embedding these within the framework can have a significant positive impact upon the culture of the firm. The embedding of such values and their manifestations within the firm also affects its relationship with its regulator. Consider the views expressed in the above statement and discuss them in the context of their relevance for the firm's relationship with its regulators, supporting your views with appropriate examples. Okay, so with this question, my first thoughts are, consider, what's your view on this subject, on embedding within the framework? If we embed, will it truly have a positive impact upon the culture? Yes or no? Okay, and then the embedding of such values and their manifestation within the firm also affects its relationship with the regulator. Does it really affect it? And so to answer this question, I would first say, look, what does the regulator expect? Okay, so I would start with an overview of the expectations of the regulator. And then I would describe, you know, what is actually being done. So I think we would have had to go back to chapter 3 that tells us the expectations of the regulator. Is that correct? You all there? You all very quiet. You all come. It's discussion based. Okay. On page 119, what does the regulator say about integrity from their perspective? Hello, you're there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, so what does the regulator say on 119 about integrity? Or you're just want Miss Fuller to give you a view. The regulator acts as a gatekeeper. They confirm this is what they do. They confirm who is fit and proper. And like I said, initially, I just made a lot of notes, and then I decided, you know, some of this you may not be able to put in because the word count is so limited. Okay, the regulator supervises. They keep the watchful eye. They want you to be open and honest. They want you to be transparent, right? The risk-based approach is no exchange from the rules-based approach. They want you to, you know, collaborate, just like how we say the police are our friends. They want the regulators, you know, the regulator wants to be your friend. They want you to be as open and honest and transparent as possible, but they don't want you to overwhelm them with information. So you have to know what to give and what not to give. Okay, they want you to attend seminars and keep current and you know, have awareness of inherent risks. They want you to be proactive and pragmatic. They want you to act sensibly. They want you to contribute to their consultation papers. Each time a policy or procedure has to be updated, they want you to comment on, you know, from the industry's point of view, does it make sense? Or, you know, if it doesn't make sense. Okay, so about 3 or 4 of these you can include in terms of what the regulator wants. Okay, and then once you are aware of what they want, will this attitude or will the values and ethics and integrity be essential once it is embedded into framework? Would that help the firm? Would that affect the culture? And so in terms of what does the industry say about embedding values and ethics into the framework? On page 121, there's a following the impact of the credit crisis by Martin Wheatley. In his speech to British insurers on 120, 123, and 211, Hector Sainz talks about attending one of his speeches from a seminar where he talks about, let me just turn to the page and tell you what it says. So this is what is happening. Again, remember when they say consider, we want to, pick at least 3 persons within the industry and comment on what they shared. And so in a speech to the Worshipful Company of International Bankers in March 2014, Martin Weasley, the then CEO of the FCA, summarized the link between regulation and ethical standards. And this is on page 123, where he says, now clearly regulators and firms still require rules to function effectively, but experience tells us red tape is more easily hurdled than principles. So as we move forward, firms will begin to see themselves held up against stricter ethical standards. And then right under there, it talks about Tracy McDermott, the Director and Enforcement and Financial Crime, again of the FCA. And in her speech to an enforcement conference, she said, until the rhetoric matches the reality, relying on people just doing the right thing won't get us there. Okay, so we have what Martin Weasley has said. We have on other pages what Hector Sainz says, what Tracy McDermott says, and I think there's a David Jackman also commenting on page 121. Okay, so there are different extracts there, right? And so we want to consider what is being said in support of our answer. And so at the bottom, you would see that they've quoted the papers on page 121. You can just Google David Jackman and his entire speech and just take out the pertinent part, or you can just look at the book, because the book specifically says, or these are extracts from speeches, and support your answer based on what is being said out there in the industry. This is what the regulators' expectation is. This is what is happening out in the industry, right? This is what is being said. So will this just embedding the embedding these values and these integrity, is it sufficient or not? And like I said, you can use those speeches, those excerpts from those speeches to support your answer. Like at the bottom, like I said, of those pages, 120, 123, it tells you that the OEC did a review. And so I would look at the OECD report and see what their findings are. I would look at the FACA Ethics and Economics paper that is quoted. And so I pulled these up, and there was a lot of information. Let me see if I can share my screen. There was a lot of information there in terms of, this bar always is in the way. Let's see, yeah. In terms of these papers, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so these papers are pretty lengthy. However, they have some very, very good information in terms of stating the outcomes of what was said in these speeches. And basically they summed it up that, you know, it won't be enough just to say embedded in the culture, but a part of embedding is enforcing. A part of embedding is carrying out the checks and balances and to make sure that it's sustainable, right? And so talking about it again is not sufficient. Okay, you have to do your checks and balances. You have to make sure that it's enforced. You have to ensure that persons not only, you know, we have it pasted in the common areas in the kitchen. We can not only quote these goals and these values that we set, or this mission statement, but we actually act it each day. And so in order to act it, there has to be a gatekeeper, there has to be a checker. We have to ensure that we are honest as possible and transparent as possible. Okay, and in the end, like I say, based on after you would have reviewed the OECD report, you can conclude with your position and, you know, any case examples that you want to use. But I wouldn't like rehash. I would probably just you know, state like in the case of Enron or in the case of RBC of Scotland, you know, and conclude with something to that to support the answer. Because they did have the goals, they did have the values and ethics, and, you know, all written on paper. However, nobody knew them. It was never enforced. And so that's the outcome of just having a, you know, a bunch of pretty paper or everything just documented. And so we look good on paper, but we actually do not do anything that it says. Okay, so give me some feedback. Tell me your thoughts. Simone, what were you thinking in terms of answering this question? Are we on the same track?
I would say, I mean, you were more on along the track than I was. But it's not that I was thinking about approaching it a different way. It's just that I wasn't sure. But now that you've explained it, then I'm more comfortable with how to go about tackling this one.
Okay. Okay, and the book does a pretty good job. Like I said, they actually the speeches, they actually cut out the extracts. There are so many extracts in the book that talk about you know, what they said at the speeches in support of this. So you don't really have to go outside the book. But what I've seen happen when we do something, you know, have so much information in the book, every single paper quotes the same. Because right, I've said Martin Wheatley, I've said Hector Scans, I've said David Jackman, I said Tracy McDermott. And people normally go with the first three and the three quotes, and every single paper is the same. So, because I mean, if you want to stand out and be a little different, and I have given persons more points because they would have gone out and did research, not just use the exact speech out of the book. Okay, and like I said, we would have looked at one of these. Let me just show this this paper by who is this? This is the new. This one is on trust and ethics from a regulator's perspective. And again, I don't think this Andrew Bailey person was quoted, so this would be a good one to use as well. And again, not everybody uses it. He says some very interesting you know, information in here.
Okay.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yes.
And
go ahead. Somebody said Miss Bullard, and then Leslie Johnson, and then was it who was it, Annie?
No, ma'am, it was Ivania.
Okay. Mhm.
For this question, because I made like a little notes, but I was wondering, because I had to basically look at, well, not look at, but talk about basically like the code of conduct, including, okay, baby, including integrity in it. But then also speaking on like if there were to be potential breaches, like how the regulator would respond, well, not respond, but how the company would respond, and if the regulator is viewing stuff like that, or that's off topic.
No, it's not off topic, right? But you have to be careful of your approach, because if you're going to divide, into 5, you only have 650 words per question, and that's 2 paragraphs. It could be possibly 3, right? And so
That's fine.
it's a consider the views expressed and discuss them in the context of their relevance from the firm's relationship with the regulator. Support your views with appropriate examples. Those appropriate examples are these from these extracts from these various speeches. Right? So of course, mentioning the code of conduct is relevant, stating that, it must be documented. And again, when I would, focus on the word embed. And so from these various speeches, you will see that they constantly say, yeah, we have all the we have pretty words, everybody can quote them. But the problem is that it's not practiced. Okay. And then not only is it not practiced, it's not enforced, and nobody is saying anything about it until there's a failure. And so again, there's a paper that says lessons we would have learned from the past. Okay, I think that's the Tracy McDermott. And she is basically saying, the regulator is no longer seen as effective because we continue to do the same thing.
Okay.
Right? So
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, that one I would focus on that paper with the Tracy McDermott, her speech. Let's see if I could share this. This is learning the lessons of the past. Okay, I think she goes on to say, let me see, how do we rebuild trust and confidence is vitally important sector providing critical service across the economy. She says something about, okay, recently I reviewed some of the statements put out by firms that we had found, looking particularly into some of those which has been regularly visited by the FCA enforcement team. The themes were depressingly consistent. Okay, indeed, some of these statements read a little like PR paint by numbers. They are all told the same story. Misconduct was described as being the work of a few individuals, that these people had acted contrary to the standards of the firm. The lessons have been learned and changes made, that it wouldn't happen again. But of course it did. Okay, and she goes on to talk about, in the book as well, talks about the LIBOR issue. And then she goes further on to talk about, I do think lessons are being learned slowly from the top. And she goes on to talk about how the regulator looks bad. People will not respect the regulator in the end. I think it was the Nobel Peace Prize winner that said, where were the regulators when the credit crisis happened? What were they doing? What did they do to, stop it or prevent it? And so the blame is ultimately on them, because they are the gatekeepers. They are supposed to be able to see these things happening because they should be monitoring, right? And so if a bank completely fails, or and most of these banks are too big to fail, and so you have to bail them out. where was the gatekeeper in all of this? Okay, so you have to say, these are the, expectations of the regulator. And in your concluding statement, is the regulator not, to blame in all of these cases? And then the industry is depending on the regulator. And from this too big, from lessons would have learned, you would see where she says, persons are starting to look at them and hold them, accountable and say they're not effective. So the whole point is embedding. Will it have a significant positive impact upon culture? If it's done properly, yes. Will it affect the relationship with the regulator? Yes, because the regulator expects you to be transparent. They expect you to be open. They expect you to be honest. Okay? And once you're open and honest and transparent, what's going to happen? They are going to be able to help you avoid, getting in fines. They're going to. Ms. Bullitt has been honest in the past. She's been very transparent. This was just a mistake. There are going to be breaches, like I said. The hackers and scanners are smarter than us. They are going to infiltrate your system if they want to. When they do, will the regulator see you as completely negligent? And to see if, will they feel like you left yourself open to, anybody could have invaded your financial institution because everybody's negligent? Or will they see you as, a professional who did everything possible to protect the system? However, like I said, are you mitigating risk? So you build a reputation. We have them in writing, but embedding them means that we are going to enforce them and we are going to monitor that they're being carried out. Does it have a positive impact? Yes, because the tone comes from the top in terms of culture. We respect regulators. We respect compliance program. We believe compliance is everybody's business. We believe everybody's in tune, everybody knows their responsibilities. The benefits of this good culture is that we get good trust from the regulator, good trust from the customers, and potentially new customers, because our reputation on the streets will be, this is a sound institution. Your money will be protected. They are knowledgeable. Or these people dumb, you can lose your money. Don't, it really depends on what reputation you want. Okay, and if you get it wrong, then you're gonna increase compliance costs. You're gonna have greater fines. You will constantly be in audit mode because you have a remediation plan after plan after plan. And then you could do severe reputational damage. And so let's see what's happening with Royal Bank now in terms of constantly being in the news, making decisions that are not for the people, even though their motto, I don't know if it still is, used to be earning the right to be the customer's first choice. So to many people, that's just a baseless statement that's not being carried out.
Agreed. If I could just chime in here, I was going to say, I totally agree with the approach that you outlined so far. I think it's a very good one, and it's along the lines where I was going in terms of how to structure and answer the question, and also the resources, like the two statements that you had highlighted. That gives us a lot of meat in terms of considering that viewpoint. So I'm going to take a similar approach. For the benefit of the discussion, I'll also say when we're answering the question, it's important for us to be objective as well. So like when it says consider the viewpoints expressed in the statement, it's letting us know the fact that, hey, this is simply a point of view. And, while you may agree, it doesn't mean that you may agree 100%. And it doesn't mean that there are opposing views that are also valid. Some may feel, well, it's better to focus on simply meeting the legal requirements or the minimum requirements, although that may not necessarily be the best thing. It may be helpful to explore any valid opposing views. And like that especially comes in play when you think of the industry and the jurisdiction that you're using as your reference. Like, for example, like in a textbook, focus a lot on the FCA and the common principles that are applicable to the OECD countries, whereas in the Bahamas, that those common principles are not mandatory here, and our regulators have a different approach. So like, let me use like banking, for example. Let's think of the central bank and the reviews that they regularly conduct. While ethics and integrity, of course, are principles that every bank are expected to have, when you look at their approach to testing, if there's very little they're testing to determine the underlying principles, and they're more so just focusing on whether this was done this way or that way, that would kind of have an effect in terms of how you view the effect of integrity and ethics in your relationship with the regulator. Like if you have a regulator that's more rules-based than principles-based, then you may think, well, yes, I partially agree with the statement. So it's important to be objective and use the example of the jurisdiction and the industry that you're in, the regulated industry that you're in. So if that is in contrast with the FCA and the example that we have in the textbook.
Right. So Jensen,
And then
let me just interject 1 second. I agree with you. However, it's not that it's the approach, the Bahamas, we're just not there yet. We haven't had sufficient cases to and we don't have that international pressure yet to focus and put it into writing with this for ethics and integrity. It is right. Like I say, central bank hasn't updated their fitness and proper policy from 2003. The Insurance Commission has, the Compliance Commission, I think has. So they're just, that's how far behind we are. Remember now, we took the staggered approach in implementing all these policies and procedures. It has to go into law first.
Agreed. I think we're getting there.
Yeah, so we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah. Right. Okay, and you wanted to say something else?
Right. No, I was just going to say, depending on the industry that we're in, we would want to draw from the example of our regulator and how essential, ethics and integrity plays a role in our relationship with them. So like in my industry, it's definitely important, but I can see where, still more rules-based and you wouldn't be impacted as much as you should be. But like you said, we're getting there in terms of those high-level principles. And ethics and integrity playing that important of a role.
Right.
And then lastly, at the end, where it says supporting your views with the appropriate examples, we would want to make sure that we have taken our position in terms of whether we agree fully with the statement or partially, and then, perhaps using local examples to support, well, why you think partially agree or why you fully agree. So I just wanted to chime in for the benefit of the discussion.
Right. Okay, very, very good, Jensen. Thank you for sharing. And again, I always say, the easiest jurisdiction to choose or select is Bahamas. Luckily, this question does not specifically say in the this particular one. Well, does it? The name of the jurisdiction, okay, should be, all questions can be answered in relation to a jurisdiction which you are familiar, okay, which is the Bahamas. However, like I said, we don't have all of these outside of the fit and proper and the, corporate governance or whatever. We don't have them as detailed. Now, what I do know is this is not policy, but where is it? I have so many things open that I can't even find it. Okay, let's see. Okay, here it is. Can you see my screen or no?
No, not right now.
No, okay. So in terms of, okay, so are any of you familiar with the Nassau Institute? No? Anybody? No?
No.
No? Okay. So just like the FCA, and this will go in terms of I guess more so question 3, we'll look at this, where they have the principles ironed out for businesses, and these are the fundamental rules. I see that the Nassau Institute has something similar, and in terms of the first ethical, and again, this is not law, and I don't know how entwined they are with the regulators, but they did write this piece of paper to say, in the absence of law, we go to best practice. And so in terms of best practice, if there's nothing in our jurisdiction, the government normally, they go to Cayman or Luxembourg or even the Netherlands, and they normally use those standards as a best practice. So I would say that or what you would do is say that, this Nassau Institute and put by Maurice Marwood, and they have some ethical principles that we can follow in terms of documentation that are best practice. Okay, in the absence when your jurisdiction does not have it ironed out completely. Okay, so you can visit this site and get some information in terms of what is, I think it's 3 ethical principles and then the code of conduct. Okay, and some of your code of conduct, if your institution doesn't have a code of conduct, Bahamas Financial Services Board has a code of conduct online. And again, you can leverage off of that and just quote, in the absence of my company having one or whatever, this is what is used. Okay, so you can get some good information from here in terms of the principles, ethical principles. Okay, because that's what question 3 talks about. Okay, and we'll look at this again when we get to question 3. Okay. Any questions on 1, or we can move on to question 2? Silence gives consent.
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay, good. Okay, remember now, this is discussion based. Y'all should be talking back to me. Y'all should, be giving me feedback and telling me this is my view and asking questions. That's how this works. Right? You're very quiet.
Sorry for joining a little. I was tardy, so I didn't want to interrupt, but I joined a little late, so I didn't catch the whole gamut of it. But I'm going to catch up. But thanks.
Okay, great. So you ready for question 2 then, Dimitri?
Ready.
Ready? Okay,
ready,
great.
I said ready as in what? What do you mean?
To give us some input or your thoughts regarding question 2. No, Dimitri, you going?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't know I hit mute. I'm just working on question 2, so I don't have the proper outline on that as yet. I can be honest with you.
Okay, that's fine. Because I did question 4 for you, so we can get back to you then. You went through question 4. I know you gave us some good information in the last we started to discuss it.
Okay,
No?
we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
All right.
Okay, so consider the existing attitude and approach to corporate governance in a regulated firm based in a jurisdiction and sector of your choice. Within this context, produce a report for the senior executive team of your chosen firm. Okay, and so A says explain what is meant by effective corporate governance and why good practice in this area is fundamental to the sound and successful running of a regulated firm in your jurisdiction. So of course, the jurisdiction is going to be the Bahamas. And for the next two questions, I mean, I just think it would be easiest to select a firm and use it for question 2 and 3. But you can use different ones. It's up to you. But the firm that, and again, all of us will, unless we go outside the jurisdiction. I mean, there are other firms, but the information may not be available as such. So my firm, the easiest one for me to choose, because I have some information on it already, is the very good Bank of the Bahamas, right? And so some of you may work the Bank of the Bahamas and you may be able to get inside information, but there's a lot of information out there in the news. So consider, again, what's the existing attitude and approach to corporate governance? Produce a report, so to the executive team. So you're producing a report to the executive team about the existing attitude and the approach. Okay. In this report, you wanted to explain what is meant by effective corporate governance, and why good practice in this area is fundamental to the sound and successful running of a regulated firm in your chosen jurisdiction. So, and this is only 10 points. So you don't want to go, again, like I said, you have 650. You probably want to say 200 on A, 200 on B or C or what have you. And so the book goes on in chapter 6 to say there are 6 key steps to good corporate governance, right? So let's turn to chapter 6, and we are going to cover this in the next 2 classes. So we'll go more in depth. So we are just going to give you the framework of where you should start, and then yeah, we'll delve deeper into it in the next 2 classes. Okay, so it says the 6 steps for the process of effective corporate governance. And again, we have the central bank, like I said, the central bank guidelines on corporate governance. And then I like the no, the insurance commission one is off. Okay, I only have the fit and proper, so I'll pull that up. Okay, so we see on the first, and let's have some interaction. Delisa, let's look on page 205 and just tell us what the 6 steps is. You can read the little paragraph and just tell us what the 6 steps are to effective corporate governance, please. Is Delisa there? No? Okay, Delisa isn't there. What about Omar Neely? Omar, are you there? No, you're just signing and you're in here. You're talking back to Miss Bullet. Okay.
Yeah, Miss Bullet, I'm here. I'm not at my textbook. Sorry, I'm not at books that I can look at. I'm just listening to the.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Annie? Annie, are you there?
I'm here, but I'm
Okay.
to work.
Oh, okay. Angela, what about you? You have your book? Okay. So fine. Let Miss Bullet just go. Okay. Sorry.
I'm here, but I don't have my book. I'll have to go look up. I'll go and I could go and look for it. I mean,
Okay.
I could do online.
That's fine. That's fine. Somebody else wanted to say something?
I was just gonna read it out because I had the book in front of
Oh.
me.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Read it out first.
You want the paragraph or you just want the
Yeah,
six?
you could go on with the paragraph.
Decision-making is the objective of any corporate governance framework within a firm or other organization. Changes lead to regulatory and compliance risks, and changes are either based on or lead to decisions. A simple yet powerful way of demonstrating effective governance is to break the change framework down into 6 separate steps. 1, the right information. 2, the right people. 3, the right time. 4, the right decision. 5, the right action. And 6, the right outcome.
Okay, so that's what the book says in terms of corporate governance, okay? And so of course, if you want to answer this question, you would quote these 6 steps, okay? And then you would just not only list them, but, you know, talk about what these steps mean. So what is the right information, okay? It really depends on the situation that you're in and having the decision that needs to be made, okay? And so you need information that is accurate, that it's current. You want to ensure that it's not secondary data, because secondary data sometimes is vague. It may be the incorrect information, and you may not be able to verify the source, okay? So this right information should be in terms of management information, reports, etc. information that can be verified. Okay, so it should be in a format that is clear. It should be informative. It should educate the recipient. It shouldn't be like in a spreadsheet where you have to manipulate the spreadsheet to find out what the data is. If it's numbers or how many accounts did we open, how many accounts did we close, what is the total value, all that information should be pulled out from a spreadsheet. You shouldn't have to, decipher and like I say, manipulate the information. It should be concise, and it should provide you with sufficient information in order for you to make the right decision. Okay. And again, you don't, like I said, with spreadsheets, you don't want to give that extra information. You want to identify what is critical, and you only want to provide what is needed. Okay. That's the right information. With the right people, you want to empower people to make the right decision. Again, I told you I was offered a job. I pay you $100,000. I only need your name and your signature. I don't want you to make any decisions. Right? So I was not empowered. We give you an office, we give you a cell phone and gas allowance, but you are only there to sign. Then the right people, sometimes we want a puppet. The board or the CEO, we want somebody who is not fit and proper in terms of enough educational background or enough experience, because we ultimately want somebody who has to, it's way above their level, so they have to keep coming in to question and ask questions, and hopefully they'll pass on their rights to make the decisions to us. Okay, so you want somebody who's competent with specialized knowledge on the subject. You want them to be able to network with people who are subject matter experts, because no one person will have sufficient information to make every decision every single time. So you want perhaps a committee who will vote on the decisions. You want some independent persons on those committees to ensure that it isn't internally, decisions are internally made without going out into the industry and seeing what is best practice. Okay, so the right people, right information, the right people. Then you want, the right time. Sometimes it may be a breach and the regulator gives you a time frame. In fact, each year there's a administrative monetary policy. It says by 120 days of the beginning of the new year, you have to submit, there's certain deliverables, 30 days within the year by January 31st. all business licenses have to be renewed, all annual fees have to be paid, and so there are time frames that have to be met, and so you want to ensure that you meet those time frames. You want to make the right decision, and again, it's difficult to make the right decision if you don't have specialized knowledge, subject matter experts. And even with people with a certain level of education and experience, even with all those persons in TAC, you could possibly make the wrong decision. You need people who don't act based on ego, okay? Because persons would say, oh, I made the wrong decision, but I don't, these people talk about me so bad, or, I'd be so embarrassed. So you have to find persons who their ego is not more important. They just don't want to be wrong, who will come up and say, this was not the best decision at that time, and it needs to be changed, and not worry so much about who's going to say what. Okay, and then the right action. Actions have to be appropriate. They have to be timely. There's no use saying, right now they're saying you have to learn to live with the flu, right? And so now we want to say, well, everybody must, we are just implementing wearing masks and having sanitizers at work. That should have been happening 2 years ago. Okay, so you want to ensure that the right action is carried out. Okay, and the risk is mitigated, by the actions that you carry out. Okay, and then you want the right outcome. Again, I always say, once you make a decision, sometimes you have to tweak it. Sometimes you have to change it entirely. We put in the laws in terms of compliance in 2000. We only wanted to meet, the requirement, get the OECD or an FATF off our back and say that we are compliant. Of course, 21 years later, to get the right outcome and to ensure we saw that those laws were not affected, hence, or effective, hence nobody was charged with money laundering because it was not even a crime in the books. People were charged, but they won their cases because at the time they committed the crime, it was not, a law in the book. So of course that did not produce the right outcome, okay, for the country, and subsequently we got blacklisted again. Okay, so you want to include those steps and give a little overview of what each step means. Central bank has a corporate governance policy in terms of, because again, you would have chosen Bahamas as your jurisdiction. And so, this actually says revised in 2013. So I think I have a question. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Okay, Jensen, we'll try to reconnect. Okay, and so again, I think the key word to this question is, well, that's what the book says. That's meant by being effective. After going through those 6 steps, you may not have space to, in fact, if you want to put in more information, what I would do is I would list all 6 steps and just explain 3 of them, and just say in the essence of, time, I only explain 3 or whatever, the 3 most pertinent ones to get your point across. And then,
Question.
Sorry?
I have a question. Which page exactly is these 6 steps? Because I'm looking and I can't remember what page it says.
On 205, chapter 6. We haven't gotten there yet. 205.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and so then we can, of course, we want to quote this central bank guideline, as we would have chosen the Bahamas, and then we can say, you know, what the Central Bank of the Bahamas says, in terms of corporate governance, what, you know, what their requirements is, or their requirements are, you know, in terms of, could, you know, to make it effective. Okay, and you should be able to find some information in this policy that, you know, Central Bank would have said in terms of governance. Okay, they tell you about the structure, the different committees that you should establish, the systems that should be in place. You know, their annual review. Their annual review is a certification that is required each year, where you attest that, you know, your business continuity plan is current, your risk profile is sound and prudent, and what have you. And that's what, you know, what would make it effective, that not only that you have the various, you know, requirements in place, but they are prudent and they are effective, and what have you. Okay, and so like I
And
said,
then I have a question. So with regards to that, so I mean, it's a lot, and just for 250 words, basically.
yeah,
Mhm.
but like I said, and the way to you mentioned the 6 steps, because like I say, I would definitely put with the book 6.
Right.
You know, because it says, explain what is meant by the effective, and you, depending on your words, you could just scale down on the 6 steps. You could
Right.
just say 2, explain, elaborate on 2 of them.
So, mhm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, instead of elaborating on all 6, you just probably pick 2 and then just go on those 2.
Right,
Okay.
just to prove,
Okay.
remember now, the paper is just to prove your understanding.
Understanding. Okay.
Yeah, so once 2 should be sufficient, because you have limited words. Okay, and then
Okay.
demonstrate, let's see what else. To demonstrate, like I said, I would have picked Bank of the Bahamas, and I think as we go into C, you could probably, oh, that's only 5 mark. Okay, B goes on to say, demonstrate the benefits of embedding, again, this word, embedding a robust approach to corporate governance with such an organization. And again, you want to say, this word embedding, it's not only right documenting and you know, disseminating, but where the downfall has been is that in some instances it has not been disseminated, and where it has been disseminated, persons, there's nobody enforcing and monitoring to ensure that, you know, they're saying corporate governance now is everybody's business, but we don't even know about it. Like they say, compliance is everybody's business. Now everybody is being trained. Is everybody being trained on corporate governance? Is information being shared, or that's still at the executive level? So of course, that's one of the problems. So if you want to demonstrate, well, you know, the benefits of embedding is that persons not only have a document, but it's carried out, it's sustained, it reflects now in our culture. That we could mitigate risks and all these different fines. Like we will not end up like Enron or RBC of Scotland, because persons actually carry out their duties and do it properly. There's a greater impact on performance and financial results. it's a better advantage. It gives us an advantage to serve the clients. It gives us better stewardship over our clients' resources. We will be in the top tier in terms of reputation in the industry. You know, word of mouth. We can reduce our marketing costs because our brand will be strong. It will promote a culture of being ethical and trustworthy. It'll boost the investors' confidence. We will build a good relationship with our peers within the, you know, industry. They will look at us as the leaders. It will strengthen management's accountability. They won't just be passing the buck if something goes wrong, you know. And just because something goes wrong in your industry, you know, or in your organization, it does not mean that you know, something the, you know, people these are idiots or they fail. Is what you do is how you handle that situation. Yes, things will go wrong, but what did you do? Did you fix it? Did you leave it stagnant for years? Did you pass the buck? You know, so those things make a difference. So we caught up so much on what goes wrong, but build a reputation of fixing what is, you know, what goes wrong. So all of these are benefits of embedding this robust approach. It establishes a code to ensure integrity. It safeguards the integrity of the company. It gives recognition and preservation of needs of shareholders. Okay, so you build that shareholders' confidence. You have a good culture. You know, it definitely should affect your financial results because everybody should be on board and pushing and doing what they ought to do in their various positions. So, you know, that should increase, you know, your financial gain. So again, that's the benefit of embedding good corporate governance or effective corporate governance. Okay. Include recommendations for improvement, supporting these appropriate examples and clear evidence of how and why this will benefit the firm. What can we do to let's think about some things. Let's look at page 182 and 212. What could we recommend? Any way we can improve? Anybody?
You said page 212?
Yeah. I said 182 and 212.
Good morning, Ms. Bella. Could you repeat your question?
It's question C.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this talks about the UK Parliamentary Commission on Banking Standards, Changing Banking for Good. The key recommendations in the report include those on holding individuals accountable. Is that a recommendation for improvement? Governance and culture improvements, securing better outcomes for consumers, and improvements in regulatory judgment. Regulators have powers to cancel outstanding deferred remuneration along with unvested pension rights, loss of office. Again, this is specifically for a remuneration policy, but again, they are recommendations that would support good corporate governance as well. Okay, if we want to
Right.
think about recommendations. Definitely holding individuals accountable, right?
Yes, I think that I would agree that with any regulator enforcing um, all of the statutory requirements for that particular industry and holding the licensee accountable, it is effective in some way, because then they know that they have someone to report to, and they know that they can be penalized, whether it's administrative penalty or it's a small serious penalty. They'll be more cautious as how they treat stakeholders.
Okay, yes, great. It's very good. Okay, and then after you make those recommendations, they say supported with an appropriate example and clear evidence of how and why these will benefit the firm. Okay, and you just said how it'll benefit the firm. With an example based on one of those, like I said, it says, consider the existing attitude and approach to corporate governance within a regulated firm. Which firm are you gonna pick? Like I said, for the next two questions, I would pick up, there's a story out there on Bank of the Bahamas. So of course, what you would say is, and we know that Bank of the Bahamas has had many, many issues in the last couple of years, right? And and let me just not say government, Bank of the Bahamas, all government banks have failed. Most government banks fail. That's the first thing in the world. That's a commonality, right? And so we don't want to only say we're in the Bahamas. So when you go online and you read the story of, their bailout in 2014 or what have you, you will start with A and you will explain the steps, and then your view would be, they obviously didn't follow this. Because when the government changed and, they allow politics to be involved, that was one of the major problems. You could say there's a commonality of banks failing that are owned by the government, state-owned banks. Okay? And then you go into, however, if they embed a robust approach, these would be their benefits. Based on what happened, this is what I recommend for improvement. This would have avoided A, B, and C in regards to their bailout. And how will this benefit them? Aside from being a state-owned bank, and they are more than likely going to fail anyway because of the government interaction. Persons are now accountable. Perhaps we recommend they establish the ethics committee. They are quasi-government, and let's ensure that the influence is not so from the government standpoint is, so we can protect the shareholders' interests. Something to that effect. But clearly their existing attitude is, we just waiting till the government change, and then it could be our chance to, take control. And so do they have a strategic plan? Okay, and is it changed every single time that the government changes? And so we saw that they put something in place where not just because the government changed that they moved the central bank governor. Again, they know that would affect the stability of the country, and so therefore we want to ensure that there's sustainability too in the state-owned bank, that just because the government changed, now the strategy is changing and what have you. So there needs to be a, what should I say, a separation to protect, sustainability and strategy and what have you. So we have a new set of players who just learning all the policy and procedure, and then they want to change everything, and then they get voted out. And so the whole process is this continuous circle, right? So we need some intervention in there. Same protection that the governor has, they need a little bit of it. Okay?
Hi, Ms. Bullard.
Hi.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. So I was having an issue with my internet connection and audio for the past couple of minutes. So I just wanted to know which question we were on. We were just starting to when I dropped off.
Okay, so we
Are we
just
on three?
finished. Yeah, I got your message. We just finished 2, but all of this is recorded, so no worries. You could always go back and listen to the recording.
Right, agreed.
Right.
We're on 3 now.
Yeah, we're gonna start 3 now if there are no questions in terms of 2.
Understood. Thanks.
Yeah, and again, just let me know. Do Ramsey, do you have any questions? Roberts, are there any questions? Or we are moving on. Elizabeth, are you there? I haven't heard from you today.
I'm here. I'm here. Just listening today.
Okay, but you are clear on what the ask is?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. All right, good. Just want to make sure. Okay, so we'll move on to question 3 then.
Ms. Bullard, when you're finished with question 3, I just want you to just summarize your view on question 1, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so question 3, what I have documented is page 211, 212, 214, and 217, right? And like I said, in the absence of your jurisdiction having documented policy, procedures, or guidelines, then you follow best practice and you leverage off, another jurisdiction. But again, it asks you for a firm operating in a regulated sector jurisdiction of your choice. Illustrate how the principles of professional ethical behavior can be reflected in the firm's process and procedures. And again, like I said, the same firm I picked for question 2, I would pick for question 3. But again, what's going to happen with the papers is almost everybody will be doing Bank of the Bahamas, and we don't want that to happen, right? And so there are other firms out there, like I said, but to get information, detailed information may be difficult unless you get, use the Enron and the RBC. And at the top of one of these pages, there are all sorts of scandals to choose from. If you do not use the Bahamas, as you know what I mean? Enron, Tyco, WorldCom, Bank of Credit and Commerce, International Wirecard, all of them have these different issues, or where they were fined or whatever because of ethics and culture and what have you, and conflicting values, which you just need to Google which state they are in and which rules they fall under. And I'm certain like the US has all their principles, and anything under the UK, you could just see which one was in the UK. There are millions of cases online. So like I say, you don't necessarily have to stick to Bahamas, because knowing that this is the only thing that we have in place. Let me see. Close that out. I'm just closing out some stuff. So, okay. So knowing that This is the guide that we would use if we do use the Bahamas. And there are other cases, like I say, online outside of Bank of the Bahamas, but you would find most of the information there. The FDC, where is it, has these principles. I hope I didn't close. Okay, there you go. So fundamental rules and principles for business. So I guess if you use one of the firms out of the UK, then it's fine. And these are the principles right there. So you want to explain how and why each individual professional behavior is key, a key component of a robust ethical culture and the achievement of a firm's corporate values. You know, Ms. Bullitt always says corporate Bahamas is very toxic. The service level in the Bahamas is far below what it should be, right? But who is corporate Bahamas? It's us. What is the firm's most valuable asset? The people. So who is being unethical? Who is being unprofessional? Who is, you know, whose professional behavior is being displayed as? Okay, so it's each one of us. And everybody always say it in me. In me, I am not the toxic person at work. I am not the unethical person. I don't make unethical decisions, you know. I don't only think about the bottom line and what have you. It's everybody except me. Correct? Okay, so this is a firm must conduct its business with integrity. A firm must conduct its business with due skill, care, and diligence. A firm must act in a prudent manner. Okay? And then these ethical principles from the Nassau Society. Say, it starts off, it seems like, to me, the first ethical principle of the business is to survive, to maximize the long-term value of the firm to its owners. Without survival, the subject of business ethics becomes irrelevant. Okay, so again, some good information in there. But on these pages that I, in the book, because again, you know, this is what they will be, I guess, as their guideline. On page 212, it talks about what are the human barriers to overcome. And of course, we know there are some dominant individual, steep authority gradients or hierarchy is a boss to a boss to a boss. You know, 10 people cooking one pot, and we know what happens, right? The blame culture in which employees are afraid to escalate issues. Oh, speak up, it's open door policy, we need your feedback, and then you're victimized, right? Of course, remuneration and reward, we're all overworked and underpaid, right? And so we focus so much on the people and their attitudes, and we say ethics and be ethical and all these different things. But what about the company? Does the company have policies and procedures that provide or support being ethical? Do the companies set smart goals that support us in being ethical? And so that's my view. Is like, you know, I come from home with some foundation. With my parents raised me well. However, I'm working in a company that I am almost threatened that if I don't make $2 million in sales for the year, I'm going to be fired. How you know, and that's crazy. And so, do these goals promote people to compromise themselves or encourage? Or is there's job loss? Okay, so in question 3, let's go on the, page 212 and look at the individual from the individual standpoint. Okay. And then I would chime in on the companies itself not having policies and procedures to support this ethical culture. Okay, you may even need to use your own institution where it says illustrate how the principles of professional ethical behavior can be reflected in the firm's processes and procedures. I mean, you'd have to use your own company to get really answer that.
Agreed, because it'll be hard to access
Yeah.
another company's
Yeah,
process and procedures to determine it. So
correct.
I think that'll be the hardest part of the question for everyone, just to explain how these principles are reflected in the process and procedures. It's there, but
Yeah,
I guess it'd be kind of difficult to isolate and tie
right,
it home to what we're discussing.
right. Unless you look at your, like, create a framework from your institution and then look for those things like in Bank of the Bahamas or in Enron or whatever company you choose.
Agreed.
Okay. But
Definitely using mine as an example.
yeah, yeah.
Also, Ms. Bullard, would it be useful to go, I mean, I think it would be useful to go on Central Bank's website, just as you have the website you just showed us for the Bank of England. Central Bank has a website that has a list of prudential norms and guidelines for banks, especially for the board and how the board should act and what their role is with
Right.
implementing policies and procedures.
Yeah, so there's a board engagement policy. Yeah. So with all these questions, I guess what you would use is corporate governance guidelines, the fit and proper guidelines throughout the regulators. And like I said, in the insurance and the compliance commission one is more current. And then the board, Central Bank recently came out in 2018 of the board and engagement policy, and there are 1 or 2 lines on ethics in there. And one of the requirements now is they must have a ethics committee. And yeah, so go through it. Yeah, but I don't know if you'll find anything else there outside of the board engagement policy. So you can leverage on that.
Okay, I guess the biggest thing is just having to narrow down and focus on an actual example to show that, which would, piggybacking off of what Jensen said, you'd have to look at something that may have occurred in your workplace, or perhaps speak with someone else who works to another financial institution to see what it is that how their policies and procedures would have affected the firm in a positive or a negative way.
Yeah. And if you have a friend to Bank of the Bahamas, that would be good, because like I said, that story is out there already. Just use your company as a guideline, but you don't have to call any names.
Mm-hmm.
You could say as quoted in Nassau Guardian, which is in the Bank of the Bahamas. So you could say that, but you wouldn't call your own company's name.
I know the Securities Commission, they have actual stuff on their website that shows court cases where they would have taken firms to court. That's a different industry. That's in the security sector.
No, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So the difference between central bank and the Securities Commission is that central bank uses moral suasion. When you do something wrong, they call you in, they offer you tea, they sit down and they say, leave the country and resign and whatever, sell your shares. The Securities Commission, however, they issue warnings and fines, and they like you say, publicize it on their website. Yeah. So you may be able to follow one of the the warnings or whatever that they have issued on their website. And that's fine. Like I said, remember the financial services sector is made up of the gaming board, the central bank, the compliance commission, the securities commission, and the insurance commission. So that's the entire sector. So there may be some cases in the hotel. On the security side, like you said, yeah, there are a lot. There have been other persons removed as well. But it's just that if you can find, you know, the newspaper clippings to give you sufficient information to support, you know, give you some meat to put in to your answer. Okay. So are we good with what question 3 is asking and how to answer it?
Yes, you said 212, and what's the other page number that you quoted?
Okay, 211, 212, 214, and 217.
Okay, thank you.
And definitely, again, back to the paper, ethics and economics, learning the lessons of the past from the FCA. And again, like I said, these would, if you choose the Bahamas, you just look at that jurisdiction and then ask the same questions in the Bahamas. Did this happen? No? Okay, this can be my recommendation. This should definitely be in policy and procedure. This should not only be best practice where we leveraging off another jurisdiction. This should be in law. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so somebody wanted me to go back to question 1 and say what my overview is or was.
Yes, please.
Question 1, I said we would start with, you know, we want to focus on the word embedding, right? And then we want to start with what are the expectations of the regulator, right? And then we want to say, these are the expectations. Therefore, will embedding give us a positive impact upon culture? Yay, yes or no? Will it affect the relationship with the regulator? Yes or no? And we want to support our argument. Then we want to look at what the industry says. And I said, there's on page 121, 120, 123, 211. Yeah, Tracy McDermott, David Jackman, all of these persons gave different views in various speeches. And so we want to compare and contrast 2 or 3 of them, but hopefully one is positive, one is negative, and then we argue if whether we are in support of it or not. So will it impact the culture? Will it?
You mean it for the culture of the firm itself? Or
Yeah, because
the,
look at the question. The values and ethics and integrity are essential elements of any compliance framework. And embedding these within the framework can have a significant positive impact upon the culture. Is this true?
Yeah, I do believe that that is true.
Why?
You mean embedding risk,
Yeah,
corporate governance and compliance? I think it'll have an effect on the culture because if you embed it in the policies, for instance, from my experience, you have a lot of employees that may be risk tolerant or risk averse. Some employees will just automatically follow the rules. Then you may have some employees or even board members that may waver a little bit, but if they have a guideline or they have something that they're mandated to with their employee contract, then they're going to be less inclined to not follow the rules. And it won't just be based off their own integrity and decision making. I think a company should always have policies in place especially when, especially to guide the employee who is not necessarily knowledgeable about what the requirements are for that particular firm, what the regulators say, because you have some employees, they may just read the handbook or the manuals, but they don't see the bigger picture as to why these policies are in place. And most of the times when you create policies, you look at what the law is saying you must do, you look at what the regulators are enforcing and what they say you must do. You document it, and then you may throw in a little bit of best practice depending on what type of firm you have or what type of clients you have. But your employee is not going to be thinking that widespread. They're just, a lot of employees just fit functions. They just do what they're told. So I think it's very important to have that.
Okay, so what happened with Enron? I support everything that you said. Sounds really, really good. And that's what most companies say. We sound good, we look good, we have all that documentation. So did Enron. What happened?
Well, that's one part of it. The other part of it is not only documenting and having the policy, but then you have to enforce it. You have to make people accountable.
There you go.
So that's why you have the regulators making it mandatory to have a compliance officer and a mill row officer to enforce these things outside of the board. But ultimately, it is the board's liability, and to enforce it, it's their responsibility.
Okay, great. And that's the key thing. And not, we need that enforcement, we need that monitoring, and then we need a consequence if it's not adhered to. Like, what happened? Do we slap you on the wrist? Do we train you? Because like you said, most persons show up to work, and compliance is not everybody's business. Corporate governance definitely is not everybody's business. Why are we accepting that as an institution? Why is that okay? It shouldn't be, right? So we have to train these persons to what our policy and our values and our goals. Otherwise, like you said, they show up, you know, with their own judgment, with their own mindset. This is how my parents raised me at home. I'm going to bring this right into Royal Bank of Canada. No, that don't work here.
Also too, what I just thought about, it's also important for firms to have independent audits as well. And for shareholders to enforce independent audits, because sometimes there may be errors that people want to hide, or they don't want to compromise themselves. Or maybe an employee who's their favorite, you know,
Right. So that's a requirement, I think, by most regulators. You have to have external audit too. And again, that's a part of monitoring. Monitoring is not just, you know, the manager checking, but compliance checking, risk checking, internal audit versus external audit.
Yeah,
all of that is included in monitoring. One
I
of the
think
statutory requirements.
The internal auditor also checks the compliance and the risk to see if they're doing what they're supposed to do. So I think that's to me, that seems to be the most important thing about the internal audit, that it checks the people who are responsible for enforcement in the firm.
Right, and to make sure that they are effective. Yes, very good. Juan, thank you so much for sharing. Very, very enlightening. Okay, so good. So we play out with these questions and what they're asking, and with the expectation. Okay, good. Okay, so let's go on to question 4. Okay, so again, the long excerpt or case study about what's happening in institution, and like Dimitri said a few weeks ago, why is this allowed? They say this has been going on for years, and it's still going on. Like, who's in charge around here, and why is this allowed? Okay, and with questions like this, you want to discuss what the laws are in the jurisdiction, any rules, and any policy and procedure. I guess you could go if you want to say, well, this, I don't, it just says a regulated firm. So I guess if you say it's a bank, you can go into the policy and procedure of a securities firm, the Securities Commission. All of them have anti-money laundering policies, procedures, and guidelines or rules. I know the Securities Commission has rules, anti-money laundering rules. So you want to discuss, this is what should be happening, okay? Versus what is happening. And then you want to address the issues in order. And again, like I said, be cognizant of the 650 words limit. And so therefore, you don't want to rehash the entire law, but you want to, make reference to some laws or procedures that should have been followed. And then, like I said, there are 8 asked in this question. And it says, so you want to think about your target audience and who are you addressing. It says you arrange a meeting with your senior compliance team members to discuss an action plan. So in the first instance, after you would have quoted the laws, procedures, what have you, your action plan. And again, you would want to say, this is condensed. The main issues that need to be addressed immediately is A, B, and C. And then it says you want an immediate action plan and then something for the long term. So you could say immediately, these are the 2 things that need to be addressed. In the long term, these are the 2 things. So I wouldn't go over 4, or I would say immediately A and B has to be addressed. Then we need to, this is for longer term, okay? And like I said, with these questions, we miss out some of the asks. So you want to ensure. So that's the first 3 things, the plan of action. And this is just a meeting within the compliance, the senior compliance team, immediate and long term. Then it says from the above scenario, identify which you believe to be the key risks, regulatory and other. Okay? When we say other, what do we mean? Is there credit risk? Because they say that what did they say? The aggressive sales practices could be detrimental to the company. So that these aggressive sales targets can cause you to give loans out or credit cards out to people who may not qualify because, again, I have to bring in this $2 million worth of revenue or I go home, right? So you may want to go along that route when you talk about key risks. Then it says, explain why these should concern the executive board of the regulated firm. Why should it concern them? Okay. And why, as a regulatory compliant professional, the attitude and approach of some of the stakeholders referred into the above scenario causes you concern. So why does the attitude cause you concern? And then support with relevant examples. Again, I write back to the Bank of the Bahamas, but then something like this, Wells Fargo had a big problem with affected millions of people as well. Right? And so, like I said, you want to start with rules, regulations, or procedures. Then you want to identify 2 or 3 of the risks because there are many red flags in this. There's an aggressive growth approach. There's a number of untrained new employees. And of course, we just give persons a bunch of policies and procedures and we sit them at a desk and they say, you read it for 3 days? Yeah, okay, now let's go to work. So we know what the risks involved in there, okay? So the staff recruitment has been high. That means there's been a high turnover, which large number of new employees throughout numerous offices, many on short-term contracts. So there's nobody to train anybody, okay? As new products and services were introduced and numerous new staff joined the firm, in your professional capacity, you regularly urge caution about how these changes were being made. Particularly, you highlighted concerns about the adequacy of customers' suitability assessment and pointed out potential inadequacies in the recruitment process for new staff. Again, a proper background checks being made. There is a policy on suitability, but that's more so dealing with risk tolerance levels for people who are going to invest in the stock exchange, and that's on the Securities Commission side. Okay, but are these persons, remember when we talked about effective corporate governance, it mentioned the right people. Are these the right people? You raise concerns with some business managers' attitudes towards risk management within the firm, particularly those who were new to the business sector. Okay, so obviously something wrong with the attitudes. Okay, managers demonstrate little understanding of the risk inherent. You want to explain that when persons are not qualified and there's no specialized information being provided. What is the risk? Okay, aggressive sales practices could be detrimental. Where the SMART goes. Okay, we had a big problem right here in the Bahamas where two of the very major, and this never made it to the news. This audit found this out, but one particular company 1 year let 130 persons go who did not meet their sales target. Some of those same persons were hired by the next company because the next they already knew, if I don't meet the sales target, I'm gonna let go. They manipulated the system. Okay, so here's the same person knowing that if I don't meet my target, I am going to lose my job. So I have to find a way. Again, I come in with my parents' good training, hopefully, and now I have a mortgage to pay, school fee to pay. I now am compromising myself. And so audit was able to determine that because somebody in Freeport had won salesperson of the year. So we said, wait a minute, the people in Bahamas and Nassau could not meet the sales because of the economy. So Freeport economy is 10 years behind Nassau. How? You know, and simply just from that person becoming salesperson of the year, we got over 100 email the next day saying that needs to be checked, even though we sat there saying Freeport. And so what we saw was that persons would come in and say they want a credit card increase, but you don't get any sales points from credit card increase. So they would give you a new credit card. And if you needed a line, if you could, whatever you could qualify for, a line of credit, a mortgage, somebody even got a mortgage. I don't know how that worked, but that never made it to the legal team. So that's how they got that. So they gave you a line of credit, a consumer loan, a credit card, whatever you could qualify for, they gave you. And before the first payment came out, they closed them all out. So in essence, you never really got those services. You got a credit card increase. But they put all these things in, and the sales points would have gone in within a week after you closed the business. And so it would have been recorded. So there was more than 1,000 fraudulent products and services that people did not get. And that's how that person wanted in Freeport. Of course, right afterwards, she resigned. When she found out she was being investigated, and people kept going up to her and saying, well, how you in sales of the year? And then, of course, we know the Wells Fargo story, where 44,500 people were involved because they were simply negligent. They did not do their checks and balances, or their friend come up to them and say, sign this, or this, I putting through this loan. Okay, so start with the rules and regulations, identify the red flags, and then answer those 8 questions. I would talk about SMART goals being realistic. I would talk about inherent risks and that managers' attitudes. In my plan of action, immediate and long term. And when you get down to the key risk, of course, inherent risk, and then like I say, I would go the credit risk because of these targets that are being set. Attitude and approach. Again, we just talked about in question 3, individuals' professional behavior being a key component of ethical culture. Okay, and then my example. For example, in the case of Bank of the Bahamas, it was found that, or in the case of Enron, it was found that employees did A, B, and C. Hey, Dimitri, you there?
I am. I'm here.
What say you, Dimitri?
Yeah, you covered it very well.
You're stay there. When you all write these papers, I covered it. Dimitri?
No, you
Like
covered,
this.
but like you know what we talked about last week. So it was like I just had a concern about. I think the question is loaded, and I spoke to some persons about it too. It's a loaded question. I think it's a trick question because if the foundation of this conversation is ethics and integrity, you know, and the question starts off, this thing has been ongoing for several years, then you know, ethics and integrity starts, that's an individual practice. I don't think ethics can be legislated, or you know, you can have or policy for that matter. And when I read the question, you know, this individual, you know, I understand he's, you know, spearheading this meeting and you know, whatever, but you're talking about you indirectly involved in some very questionable behavior for years. And
So what
you
does
know,
it tell you about the culture of this firm?
well, obviously it speaks to, you know, negatively toward that, but it's still, you know, you can't legislate personal integrity. And
But we have to, what other choice do we have? I mean, you know, with all these murders and stuff like that happening, you know, everybody trying to pass the blame, but I blame the parents 100%. And what do we do when we saw with the pandemic, where parents complain about teachers for so long, the teachers ain't teaching them nothing, but we as parents ain't teaching them nothing at home, and they go into these schools and being disrespectful. Now it switched with this virtual, and now we see just how bad we've done as parents, right? And so let's go back to this word embedding, right? If you come to me untrained, you get all the degrees now. You get all the degrees, all the accolades and everything. You have the years of experience. People have just tolerated you all this time. And when you know, friends, family, and lovers, I had somebody who defrauded CIBC and was in Bank of the Bahamas on Monday morning. Friday, they was let go. They was in Bank of the Bahamas on Monday morning. Then they defrauded Bank of the Bahamas. They was in Commonwealth Bank the following week. Then they was in FinCo the week after. And I talk about in management positions. Right. You know, you done defraud 5 banks. Thank God. Right. I mean, I say thank God he passed away. But if he had not passed away, I don't know. I would feel he would have been in right now. But this was a very eloquent speaker. He played the organ in the church. And so he was well connected, the network. Right. So when you come to me not trained, but you have all the degree in what do? We have to put in policy, Dimitri. We have to say these are the core values of the Royal Bank of Canada. These are our beliefs. This is our mission statement. Don't come here with what you learn at home. That's all of us ain't have that foundation, correct?
I understand you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand you.
Yeah.
But I just wondered what was happening for several years with this nationomic company. I'm just, you know, because the time frame didn't say within the past year. I would feel better if, you know, the question that I asked within the past year. When we talk about several years, it's, you know, that's a loaded gun, man. That's, you
But
know,
yeah, but
that's a
this
loaded
is
gun.
I am telling you, this is happening because you have people are just removed and replacing the good people. Just get tired of fighting. You go and read the story of the Bahamas. How do you think they got to that point? Where governments keep getting involved and they keep constant turnover and growth. All these things just fall through the cracks every single time. This is
Right.
happening today in many companies. And when you find people who act ethically, Dimitri, if you tell the truth today, people hate you. We live in a society now where people respect it. You know, we because of this Facebook and social media, everybody lives a lie. And when
Agreed.
somebody tells the truth, you are now outcast, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So that's how deep it is.
Right.
And or everybody just, I need my job. My God, you grew up in church. You was in the choir. These people are unethical. You join them. You sitting there with a blind eye. You just as bad as the people when Jesus was being crucified who, you know, did not step in.
Okay.
And it's more of them than us. That's how the world is. We've been pushed into fear.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
I always say, get your 5 revenue
I
streams.
think that's another.
Yeah, go ahead, Jensen. Yeah, I say get your 5 revenue streams. And so as you get to the executive level, you do not
That's good.
compromise yourself. Jensen?
Agreed. Yeah, I was gonna turn fresh from your standpoint as a client professional. You know, further what to be saying what you were saying. You know,
You breaking
being
up a
able to
little bit.
answer
Jensen,
bearing
you
land
breaking up.
in there for so many years and
Yeah, Jensen, we couldn't hear you.
okay,
Your mic was
probably
breaking
having
up.
an issue with. Okay, I will try chime.
That's
Probably
better now.
an
That's better now. Go
issue again.
ahead.
Hear me clearly now?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Right. I was just saying, I'm not hearing you now, so I'm probably so a few minutes. As I can hear you now.
Yeah, you're still breaking up. I guess something wrong with your mic. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so get your 5 revenue streams. You have to make a job. And so when these people just want you to sign or they it's more of them than you 5 of them. 3 unscrupulous persons, and then the Christian people and the people who in the choir who just sitting there and turning a blind eye and pretending like they don't know, they too afraid to speak up. Yeah, they're not going to be victimized. Yeah, those that it's all of them, and then you who know better. Then you just leave. Okay, and hopefully you take the time and write the regulator and say this is what is happening, because until it's enforced, until it's monitored, until it's more of us than them, then unfortunately we contribute to it. We show up every day contributing to it, allowing
Questions,
it to
Bullet.
happen.
Questions, Bullet.
Yes, go ahead.
Which laws / regulations speak specifically to financial ethics? And is there a requirement to report questionable ethical behavior legislatively?
Okay, so what I've seen, of course, we all have a code of conduct. There's no, I'm not aware of a specific law that speaks to ethical behavior, and it's more so through your code of conduct and through best practice. That's why I said, we could follow the FCA principles. I know that the best example that, to explain that I have is I see now the law firms that have a corporate service providers arm is regulated by the Compliance Commission. And those law firms have strong code of ethics, and they have those ethics committee, and those committees have removed a lot of lawyers for doing unscrupulous stuff. So that's the best example I could tell you. Like I said, central bank uses moral suasion. When you do something wrong, they call you in, and there are 1 or 2 cases out there. They call you in and they say, please leave quietly, without embarrassment and stuff and reputational risk. Like Quant said, the Securities Commission has these warnings and these rules. So you can go on their site and look under those warnings and those rules, and you may be, you could see that they may have removed under probably the penal code or go through it and see which law that they use to remove these people. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look through the Securities Commission too to see if I can, but there are certain rules and standards and stuff that have to be followed. So I think outside of the lawyers and like I said, there are millions of cases where lawyers were removed under the ethics. The board sustainability policy just came out in 2018, and so like I say, they required boards to put in an ethics committee and to say how they would be, persons would be removed if they were in breach. And so that's, like I say, central bank quietly does it. They don't publicize it, but they removed somebody recently, and that's in the Guardian. So y'all can probably read that story, but that was because that person took them to the Supreme Court and said, y'all can't remove me. So you could probably go Google that story.
Say again the story, please. Say again. Sorry.
Yeah, this chairman took the central bank to the Supreme Court. The chairman of a board of a local company, an offshore bank, took this central bank to the Supreme Court, stating that they could not remove him. And so, of course, the Supreme Court supported the central bank, but I cannot tell you under what, probably because, it should be, the central bank has a, they updated the central bank policy that gives them authority to do stuff. And then the FIU has authority to do some stuff. So yeah, they look at the FIU guidelines and the central bank itself guidelines. And that would tell you, I don't think it's under the Bank and Trust Act, but the central bank has a policy as the bank, and they have certain authorities in there.
They do. Concerning fit and proper, they have
Yeah.
guidelines concerning that, requirements.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the fit and
specific
proper.
positions.
I don't see it in the fit and proper. I don't know.
But I read it. I read it.
You
I
read
may
it in
be,
the fit and proper?
no, I'm not saying I read it on the fit and proper, but I'm just throwing it out there that I did read something related under one of those or both of those,
Yeah.
regarding appointments.
Yeah, and they have what authorities they have.
Yeah. And I may have misspoke in regard saying specifically fit and proper, but in terms of the phraseology, a person ought to be,
Yeah.
fit and
Yeah, so
proper
it's
to hold a
either
certain-
the central bank authority, whatever they call it, or the Bankers and Trust Act, their authorities should be in there. And the FIU, what authorities they have. And the FTRA just says that no other guideline trumps that, the FTRA. So I don't know if something in the FTRA.
There's also the, sorry, I was gonna say there's also the central bank guidelines for governance of banks and trusts, and it has like officially in these sections or responsibility of the board, and they're being ethical, or they're using it. That was the basis. So they had this person removed.
You're still breaking up. We can't hear you.
There isn't anything that's
yeah, you're still breaking up. We can't hear you. I don't know. Y'all can hear it, or is it just me?
I couldn't, it was breaking up.
Yeah, he's having
Yeah.
a challenge. He's having a
Oh, yeah,
challenge.
you break it up. Okay, yeah.
But I'm reading it now under the FIU Act. It's a subsection, but it establishment of FIU 3, and it'll be D. Having suitable qualifications, experience, provide services, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's just specific to the unit. But I read it, one of the guidance or guidelines for Central Bank. I'm gonna research it and put it in the group, but it's actually, it speaks to suitability.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and like I say, the Securities Commission has a suitability policy as well. I think it's more geared towards, no, it's people who can act as investment managers as well. So that's some stuff, and it's tolerance levels for the customer. So yeah, there's a suitability policy under the Securities Commission as well.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely.
But again, you just want to quote it, and probably because you, like I say, you have limited 650. That's limited wording for each question. Yeah. Okay, any questions or concerns? I'll be good. Okay, and don't feel bad about not speaking up. We have covered it now. The paper is due on March the 7th. And, we always advise that you try to finish it 1 week ahead. Just in case if you have an emergency or what have you. So you want to try and finish by, what is probably the 31st? Yeah, by February 28th. That's the end of the month. And then, of course, you all know that the end of the month is very hectic for most persons. So let's give us a date of the 21st. Okay, try and say this paper is due by the 21st. And you could take that last week just to read over, make sure you edit properly and no missteps and misspelling and miswords, and that your points are clear. And then you could use that as a guideline to say, question 1 has 3 questions. Did I answer all 3? Because a lot of times we get so caught up in writing, we forget. In our thesis, we said we are going to discuss A, B, and C. We discuss A and B, and we totally forget about C. Okay, or we could use that week. We finish our paper. Now we could write our introduction. Okay, and to make sure it tells the viewer what our entire paper is about. Okay, so we have 2 more classes where we will cover the remainder of chapter 5 and 6. And so if you do start, you will have the opportunity to ask questions and let's have discussions, in the next 2 classes before we break, and then that'll be it in the paper. You won't have another class before the paper is due. So please, just organize yourself, start, put in the framework. You should have documented what each question is asking, and then go on a journey to research. And like I said, the book gives a lot of examples and papers where you could get good information. If you want to be a little different, please don't use the exact quotes. There are many quotes throughout those papers. Again, I always say, if the paper has a table of contents, we looking for ethics, we're looking for corporate governance. Don't overwhelm yourself by reading 200 pages, or if there's an introduction and then a conclusion, you read that and then decide which, paper you want to read in full. But this whole thing, like I say, loads of information. How do I pull out the meat and answer what the question asked? Okay. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? sleep on it, start, and then, let me know how it goes. Okay, see, when Jensen put some stuff in the chat, I hope everybody had the opportunity to look at it. He said the central bank guidance note, guidelines for corporate governments and banks and trust companies to operate in the Bahamas outlines requirements for the board and speaks to the conduct, ethical behavior, and corporate governance. Okay, thank you, Jensen.
Ms. Bullard, the paper that you had referenced, I made a note of it. I'm not sure if I got the correct name, but it's an FCA paper on ethics.
Yeah, they at the bottom of those pages that I quoted, like the 121 and stuff, 121, 123 to 11. One is the OECD report. One is FCA ethics and economics, and the next one is lessons we would have learned.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the ones I pulled up, and then I pulled up another one with the current president now, where he talked about ethics and trust. Some, like I say, so the majority of persons are going to copy the ones right from the book, right? Because they actually have the quotes there. But you can look at if you want to be a little different, you could go online and just Google it and pull out other quotes that are relevant as well. So all of the papers, I'm telling you, when I mark in papers, every single one have the same story. By the end, I know the entire story upside down. And then that makes it easier for me, because a lot of people just mix up the story and be like, this is what the story says. So yeah, try to be a little bit different.
Ms. Bullard?
Yes.
I came across the central bank document that I had read earlier this week.
Okay.
And I actually applied it in question 1. Some components of it is fit and proper guidelines, Central Bank of Bahamas fit and proper guidelines, supervisory and regulatory guidelines for assessing fitness and propriety of applicants for regulated functions. And it speaks specifically to sections 4, 5, and 6. I don't know, 7.
That's what I have on the screen, Dimitri.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing.
This
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, it speaks specifically to integrity and honesty and competence.
yeah,
and
right.
Yeah.
Right
So
there.
it's
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, so
I mean,
what I said about this,
Mhm.
what I said about this is this is good, but let's look at 2003, right? And that's why I said I prefer to use the Insurance Commission
Right.
or the Compliance Commission. This is the Insurance Commission, same policy, June 16, 2021.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's good
Insurance
foundation. That's good
Okay.
foundation, but try and get some. The same thing should be in here. Moral standing, now they call it, so try and
Okay.
get some of the up-to-date information as well in there.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah,
What's the heading? What's the heading again?
this is the Insurance Commission. And then the Compliance Commission one is Simone, y'all on currently updated too. I didn't pull that one out.
Yes, under our codes,
Code, yeah.
yeah.
Code of practice, look under their code of practice. And that's in 2020, I believe. It's more current than the 2003.
Lines. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Ms. Bullard, with reference to this, with using these particular guidelines, whatever firm and jurisdiction that we pick, we should be using examples for that particular firm. So for instance, if we use this as a basis, we should have an example with an insurance company or someone that's some firm that's regulated by an insurance company.
I guess that'll make it flow a little better, but
it doesn't
again,
matter.
It don't matter because
Okay,
remember, you just wanna whatever 2003 did not include, you wanna pull out. You
and
know what I
reference
mean?
this.
Yeah, you wanna say. I mean, you don't necessarily have to reference it. You could say, talks about moral standing. You can see over the years, based on in 2003, what was required. Now you need a bio affidavit, resume. Remember, we talked about this in the class.
Yeah, so this just
Yes.
shows the evolution of how
Yes. and the statement of network and stuff like that. And before they used to just require the stuff and never come out and check. Now they coming out and check. My neighbor said it's been to me twice, so years ago, no neighbor ever said that they come, they didn't check. But now they're working on enforcement. And the statement of network definitely wasn't required. So like you say, the evolution, how it is increased, So just look at the current versus the, very old. 2003 is just what, 20 years? That's very long ago. And again, this current version is based on us being reactive. All
And then-
these stuff that done happen in the industry in the last 20 years, we had to beef up, right?
Yeah, and what I noticed too is, in years before, they were only concentrating on the board and only concentrating on senior management, the board, or maybe just a regulated function. But now they're giving guidelines for persons that are more involved in the day-to-day.
Yeah, and like investment managers are now regulated and what have you. So you have to make sure they are fit and proper as well. But in the past, only the lay staff or only the staff within the organization had to be trained. What changed is now the board has to be trained, and all the third party like the business introducers and the external asset managers. So they've now included them in compliance training as well. And now they've said lay staff must be aware of the risk appetite, and the strategy in the corporate governance now must be everybody's business. So some changes on both sides.
Well, I know of a story of where clients, well, not really a story, but there are cases where clients who would have, you'd have investment managers coming out of Europe trying to establish investment companies over here in the Bahamas. And they would have clients, and the clients would be complaining about the investment decisions that they're making. They can't get their money. They're asking for redemptions, and that it was becoming an issue over the years of them using Bahamian structures, foreigners using Bahamian structures, along with persons who may be in a regulated function, a Bahamian representative along with them, but then they're making poor decisions and they weren't affected.
Yeah, so they regularized that whole, the IBC is with the boss system now, where you have to ensure that you have substance, what it means?
Yeah, it's a requirement. That's when they
Yeah.
came up with the requirement of economic substance.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have, what it is if you have a company here and you're operating it from another jurisdiction, you have to, whether once it's being operated with or from our jurisdiction, and it's what they call an included entity, you have to have a physical presence here with
Right.
I guess a compliance officer as well in some instances.
Right.
And you
right.
have to get a license from the Securities Commission in order to operate it too, if it
Correct.
falls under their jurisdiction.
Correct. And again, that's just to ensure that persons don't evade taxes, because of course, a lot of people just set up these countries in the BVI and the Bahamas, whatever, these IBCs, because the tax rate is so much less, and and some of them get citizenship with these countries and stuff like that, and they don't spend the 6 months in the Bahamas, so all of that.
No, and they don't even actually have an office presence. They are physical presence, so they making a requirement for the physical presence to try to enforce those things that you just
but see, the IBCs were made to support the offshore world, that made a lot, that was very attractive to businessmen and stuff, and so we have millions of IBCs here, but basically they'll wipe out that sector, trying to determine if these people really have physical presence. Right now, I don't think it's effective, because nobody's going to say they don't have physical presence. They're going to find out what does it require. We need to buy the house that costs $700,000. That's still cheaper than paying taxes in our jurisdiction. Let's buy the $700,000 house, or let's get this permit or that permit or whatever. And if the Bahamas is smart, because it's such a large industry, whatever the requirements are, they will meet. but you know, the international regulators are on our backs because they are the owner, you know, they are the presidents and the prime ministers of these various countries that are not getting that tax dollar. And so they are going to enforce, you know, that I mean, it isn't implemented, the law is there, but it's just a check the box. Everybody just saying, yeah, this person does have substance, you know, is related to this jurisdiction, and they're gonna find a way how, because that is a major industry, and we can't afford to lose that.
I think they found they found loopholes too, by just having like a compliance officer and someone representing as a
And-
CEO
Correct.
who's a Bahamian here in the office, and then there's no employees.
Yeah, and guess what? That is still cheaper than paying taxes in your country. That is still cheaper. So yeah. And again, like I said, we can't afford to lose another industry or have a, you know, people just close out the IBCs and go back to their repatriate to their country. So we have to do, you know, the people who stay in business are the ones that find the loopholes. Again, you have to learn to avoid, not evade. Avoidance is fine. If it says assembled furniture at 45% and 5% for non-assembled furniture, you bring in the non-assembled furniture and you pay somebody $30 to put your bed together when it reach. That's avoiding. When you evade, you go to jail. Okay, so in all these laws, there are loopholes. We just have to be the seal and Wayne Monroe. Wayne is the minister now, he ain't practicing. So what we would have learned from him, we can now carry out if we want to stay in business. You have to be savvy. You have to know the technicalities. You have to know the loopholes. And that's how you avoid. You cannot evade. That's when you're being unethical and you go into jail. But if you're smart enough, you know those loopholes, and you work the system until they, you know, change the law again. Don't break the law, avoid the law, and you make money and you stay in business in these days and times, because all jurisdictions are heavily regulated, and only the persons who are, like I say, technically savvy and have the patience to read and understand how our company will not get fines and break the laws are the ones who that are going to stay in business. Only the ones who can call someone on the phone and speak knowledgeably to her. She'd be like, Miss Bullet just trying to make this money. She is not breaking the law. She knows what this code of practice says and she is following it. Right, Simone?
Right.
Right. And that's all it is. And so you see the banks and the securities firms and closing out because they don't have that expertise on staff. You have to be savvy, and that's how you stay in the business.
I've been published enough as a street man, corporate deals
I
on
can't.
the outside.
Jensen,
Really
you're still
blind.
breaking up. Type in the chat and I will say what you say. Type in the chat, please, Jensen. Because your contribution has been very valuable, but we need to get you a mic, Jensen.
Ms. Bullet, question while Jensen's typing.
Go ahead.
Put yourself in the position of this compliance, the senior compliance professional. Question 4. All right. Would you have remained at this firm?
Let me tell you a personal story. I was at this firm, okay, and I was hired by a friend who said it needs to be more of us than them, and we went in there. Central Bank, this firm is about to be shut down. Central Bank gave us until December 31st, which was like 6 or 7 months away. If you can implement the policy and procedure and get this bank back on track, we will keep the bank open and find a new buyer. Okay, so we put in the framework. We got everything down on paper. We got the policy and procedure, but it was not embedded yet because the staff did not buy in. Okay, And so we had these people with these ridiculous goals being set, hiring, and we saying that we ain't had time to do the background checks, and there's no sustainability, and everybody knew, and the knowledge level in the firm is very low, even though you're hiring people that don't have specialized knowledge that we require. And so, we had all those problems. And they got a new buyer. Unfortunately, they got an unscrupulous person who came in and said, well, you've basically done your job. Your job was to keep the bank open and tell central bank found a new buyer. You've done that, so we don't really need your services any longer. So I said, okay, fine. But I said, there's still a lot of work to be done. We went through the plan and what have you. And then immediately that person started to make very unscrupulous requests. And we said, no, that's not allowed. But they came in and they saw the mess that the bank was in, and they completely took advantage of that. Okay. And subsequently, they were removed. So this is real life. This happens, and this is happening. But a lot of people are turning a blind eye to it because they got a mortgage.
Ms.
Yeah,
Bullard,
yeah.
with regard to that question, what do you think about the Bahamas whistleblower policies in terms of what employees can say to the regulator or to change,
Well,
to arrange changes in these institutions without being harmed?
okay, again, the FIO bill, whether it's the Freedom of Information Act, has that written into it. Every firm must have the whistleblower policy and blah, blah, blah. It must be effective. But let's just look at Eric Snowden. His life has basically been changed. He had to go move to Russia after he blew the whistle on America. Let's look at the lady for what do you call it? Facebook. I don't know if you all remember, about a month or so ago. No, it was a month or so ago. It would have been in November. Facebook was down, WhatsApp was down, everything shut down when that woman blew the whistle.
Yeah, I
Right?
remember that.
Right. So they, instead of listening to her, when they realized she was about to make it public, they shut down every single platform to say, do you really want to blow the whistle on us? This is what can happen to the world. This is how much control we have. And I think they used that time to try and fix some of the things that she was going to expose. Again, it's going on. It's in Congress. She's still trying to prove her point, right? And those type of things are very difficult when you're dealing with people that have a lot of money. So the policy is there. Can I say people won't be victimized? They will. This may sound extreme. You have to go as far as to make some change. You have to go as far as Martin Luther King. He had to die for it, unfortunately, that when you're working with human beings, and I don't think nobody is, patriarchy enough to say I'm going to die to make change, so until there is more of them, more of us who are educated, more of us who want to see change, and more of us who don't just sit there and turn a blind eye when we know these things are happening, then nothing really happens. If we don't have these revenue streams where we don't have to worry about school fee and mortgage, then we got to sit there because we're comfortable, because we're too lazy to start something of our own. And so the policy is there. It's in law. Most companies have whistleblower policy. It just depends. Like I say, the same organization, after we tried to fix everything to keep the bank open, they went and hired somebody else who was unscrupulous. I don't know how possibly, what did central bank do to vet this new person? This it was crazy to me. Okay, so I mean, you have to remain hopeful that we could be on a learning curve. It's there, it's in policy. Is it effective? I could pick up the phone and call the central bank, and the central bank has this exit meeting with each MLRO and they ask you, is there anything that you want to say off the record about the company since you're no longer with them? They give you that opportunity. There's supposed to be an audience once a year too, where you go and explain any grievances that you may have, and but we always must remember that we are only advisors. As the MLRO, we report to the board and we advise the company on what they ought to do and what would make them compliant. We don't make any decisions. And so therefore that always causes a conflict because this is my suggestion, this is what the law states, and you're going against it. And so therefore, this company is now out of Yahweh's appetite. And so now you must move on. But I get a mortgage to pay, I get children to feed, I get a stern about blind eye. So like I say, you don't have people on board. When you get to the executive level, you will see, you don't have people on board who trying to avoid, they straight out evading. And that's just the way they do business. You have salespersons on commission. If Christmas coming, you could tell me you want to open in my account, and if your Christmas coming and I getting paid, no, you have to open this account. Nothing else in the pipeline. I don't get a salary. I had salespeople sit in my desk and say, Ms. Bullitt, if you don't open this account, I don't get a salary and I have school fees to pay. And these ain't just local payments. I talk about expats sitting in my desk saying this. So a lot of things have to be fixed. We have the laws. Are we serious about enforcing? And there are some people be hauled before the courts. Remember now, only poor people go to jail. The whole culture of the Bahamas have to change. Only poor people go to jail. For the first time ever, our politicians were brought before the court. Everybody get off. And this wasn't their first, like somebody said in another class, this wasn't Shane Gibson's first rodeo. It mightn't be the last. And he won on a technicality. When you win on a technicality, you don't go and sue the government for costs. You won on a technicality, that means that you possibly could have been guilty. But it's who you know, it's your network. Bin Laden lived for 10 years with a strong network. If you have money and a strong network, Nygaard had a criminal history dating back to 1970, before some of us was born. The first time he ever went to jail was in 2020. At 75, and then they could say he too old and the prison can't accommodate him. So it's who you know, who your network is, and how much money you have. But be hopeful, guys. I hate to give you all the doom and gloom report, but I like to be real.
Just to add to that, it does look gloomy. It does look gloomy to be in this type of profession dealing with risk, governance and culture, compliance culture. But if you think about it, if you look at the glass half full and not half empty, where would the industry be without us?
Correct. Yeah, and again, like I said, compliance.
It would be far worse.
Yeah, compliance was born in 2000 when we were blacklisted. We young, we still partying, we still in the club, just be 21 years old, we still young. So I've seen growth, I've seen many changes in the industry. And so in the next 20 years, when we get 31, we could be settled. And then in our 40s, we know the rules and we enforcing them. So as we mature. But right now, we still partying and hanging from the chandeliers and getting drunk on the weekends. Okay, so don't be dismayed. This is why we're here, to be properly trained. We are the future leaders. And when we get in these positions, we will make the right decision. I always say that our country needs us. So this is only the first step into hopefully leadership in the executive team. And like I said, go on your church board, go on the school board, and so you see how boards operate. This is our service lead. Our service, yeah, sorry. A lot of people want to just lead and nobody wants to serve. So, you know, by the time you get on a financial services board, you will be fully trained, you would have experience, you know how the church people are. You know, it would be very interesting to be on that board. What is it? What's that church? Golden Gates Assembly Board right now. Anybody wish to be on that board?
I mean, the fly on the wall, eh?
Right. Okay, but again, this is how you get experience, not by ease, you know, by getting through these types of, you know, this is how you get well versed. Jesus, my church board is fine. So what you think about these financial services board is what I could expect. If you all really want some from experience, go on one of these credit union boards. My God, I was afraid. I thought I didn't need a bulletproof vest the other day. I was sitting in the meeting. Somebody invited me and said, Miss Bullard, I'd like you to pay attention. We're interested in you joining this board. I was scared. But again, like I say, join some committees, join some smaller boards, and get some experience so you could see how it works. And then you go worry about having lunch and getting paid. Not yet. Get the experience first. Okay? Any questions or concerns? No? Okay, so sleep on it. And then next week, if you have questions, that's fine. We can go over it again. Remember, question 2 was straight out of chapter 6, and we can't cover chapter 6 yet. So as we delve deeper in it, if you have more questions, let me know. More ideas, please share, put stuff in the chat or in your WhatsApp group and support each other and network together. Okay? So y'all have a fabulous weekend. Be safe, enjoy the cold, keep covered. Remember, COVID is still out there. Okay, and I trust that y'all have a productive weekend. We'll do this again next week.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Okay, you
All right,
too.
thank you, Miss Fuller.
All right, take care.
Thank you.